So this is what I'm up to today. I'm bringing back some cleaned out supers from one apiary where I had a load stacked. I've still got another 50, maybe 80 there. What we do is we bring them back, and to this year I'm going through them all now. These are some old boxes, and this is why I can answer the question as I get asked a lot, is why don't my roofs fit on properly? Well, a lot of the time I have wonky roofs, Colin, because these boxes were made a while back, and they do fit perfect on the daylight hives, but they're also made slightly bigger for a slightly bigger designer hive originally, but they fit just fine. But the roofs are a little bit difficult. You've got to have like super large roofs to go on to fit straight. But what you can do is you can put a 10 size box on that are all new, and obviously the 10 fits on this one perfectly, but it actually reduces it down a little bit. So you can always get a roof on these. That's what we tend to do. But the problem why I'm here to talk to you about today is we have two sizes, and I've discussed this with you before. So this is eight frames in a super. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. These are built out, okay? So when you've built your super frames, because we use the plastic Baticadre from Nicot, these are actually here to be cleaned. We use these. When you've built them out on 10s, okay, you can then move them to 8s, because the 8s are the ultimate in efficiency, okay? 8s will accept bees building in between without building a raft of honey, and they'll build the combs out really wide. You've seen some of the pictures I've got of frames that are built out, and they basically fill that whole box with honey, and you obviously have 2 less frames to yank out at the end. The bees are more efficient because they put a little bit more room in the box, and they've got more room to store more honey. So that's a better way of being efficient. And what we have to do each year is we bring back the frames, the supers. We go through them all, take out the ones with pollen, and these are the ones I'm going through now. There's actually a little bit of honey in that one still, but it wasn't all cleared out. You can see, I'm just finding a really bad one here so you can see. This is absolutely full of pollen. There's no way the bees pick that out. You could put that in a super underneath the colony. But I mean, it's just as quick for us to just take this out and scrape it out. And then what we do is we'll pressure wash it, and that removes any of the shit from inside, and it is shit. Because if you don't get it out now, come next spring, what will happen is it'll all be, I mean, what does happen sometimes is you can scrape it off, like I see, obviously we have to scrape these before we pressure wash them. And the mites, the pollen mites can remove and work on this pollen over the winter. So you can see there's been some pollen mites working on that one, because it's actually starting to get like crumbly. And then you can, and come the spring, bang them out, and then you can have a hive, a frame that's relatively good to use, but it's not a guarantee. We just find it's quicker just to go through them now. It's done. We're a little bit quieter now, a little bit more time to get these things done and clean them out, work out what you've got. So what we like to do each year is try and move, obviously, as I just said, move the 10 frames onto 8s. So I've got, but because we made, I think, another 70 of these boxes about 2 years ago, I've always been using quite new frames to get them all built. Now I can start to migrate those frames that are built onto the 10s. But this year, because I had a lot of pollen in my colonies, the problem is if you don't get rid of it, it's a pain in the ass, and then you get this other issue later the following year where the bees propolize up any pollen that is old, and where they propolize it over, they don't put honey there, so you end up with areas on the frame that do not have honey. And I'll try and put a picture in now so you can see that this is what happens, and they actually build it up and propolize this area, and they just will not put honey in it, and it's a mess, and it's forever there until you clean it out. So you just clean it out. I could say you could equate this to maintenance of frames anywhere, whether you have frames that are wax foundation, whether you have the plastic sheets you pop in. We have these frames that are completely made impregnated, and the thing with these is they're actually half drawn out already, which is why they're so good. And we actually do think these are really good products, and we have no problems with them. They really are a really great product. But we only use these for the supers. We wouldn't want to use these for our brood nests, because we just feel that brood nests would just ruin this. They make it all dark, and you really would struggle to get it clean. Don't forget, we only have to scrape it with a scraper. We use a nice big scraper tool like this. It does the whole thing. You can just scrape that off, removes it all, and then a lot of the pollen does dry out, but we obviously pressure wash it and it comes clean. It's just to explain that that's a good thing to do this time of year and over the winter, while you're getting everything ready for next season, because now that's what we're doing. We're getting the bees ready for next season. We're getting the equipment ready for next season. I've got like a whole whack of queen excluders to clean that I'm going to be doing in that boiling water with soda crystals in. And you can see here, when we store our supers, they're stored dry on the top. We have a queen excluder that stops anything big getting in, any birds, any rats, stuff like that, so they're protected. And underneath, we have a queen excluder, stopping anything in from underneath. It doesn't look that pretty, but that's all you need. And they are stored dry. They'll have never any problems. And when you come to use them, they're nice and light. Some people like to store them wet, and there's a good evidence to say that if you put them on when they're wet, the bees have a good kind of few hours licking them clean, and they get a bit of food from it before they start to refill them in the spring, because you obviously only put the supers on when the bees need it, and that's what we do. But it's getting that right. I mean, everyone's got their own ideas about what they want to do. All this lot, you can see I had some very old supers here that I've actually melted down this year, and these are going to have their edges knocked off. This is what I used to do when I was an amateur, is you put a band of wood around the outside, and it kind of helps you, to sort of, move them around. You can lift them maybe a bit better, but in reality, when I have these on my truck with this band, that band might be about an inch and a quarter, but that inch and a quarter means I can't fit my supers on my truck like I do there, you see. So that's what I've learned, that is, no matter what you do, there's always a kind of standardization that you really end up having to fall into if you're a professional. And that's one of the things you learn when you get to say 30, 40 hives. A lot of the things you made, like at home, in your shed, a lot of the things that you put into place aren't quite as they should be, because when you're dealing with 200 colonies and you've got to whack out 200 supers, and because you need 400 supers or 500 supers more, to service all those colonies, you can't mess around. It's the real world. You just need the equipment. You keep it clean. You use your time wisely in the autumn, winter, and that's what we're doing. So all our boxes now are standard. This is ones we made about 3 years ago, but they're all on 10s, and I'm going to convert some. But we made these. We screw all the edges as well. You do it properly once, and they'll last you for ages. But you need to keep them clean. You need to maintain them. All these things need maintenance. All your boxes need work. It's not like, supers are finished, whack them away for the year. But just by going through your supers, you actually find any that have got dry rot, and you occasionally do find you get these little grains of white powder that fall out the corners, and you just get rid of that because it infects the others if you leave it in a stack. It's like any other woodwork. You just don't have dry rot in the area. So on with this lot. All this is going to be stacked up and put away, and I'll be scraping these out. These have all been scraped, I should say, but then I've got to pressure wash them all after these are to be scraped. We get a bit of wax from them, so it's not all doom and gloom. It's not all just like, let's rebuild these. And these go straight into 10s, and they'll be rebuilt next spring. And the great thing is, when you rebuild them in the spring, they rebuild dead easily. So I wanted just to show you that's another big part of our operation, is maintaining equipment. We're starting on that road of kind of consolidating what we've got. I'm still shaking out a few colonies. I'm still finding one or two, but overall my colonies are absolutely guzzling the syrup at the moment, because it's really dry, it's really warm. The ivy has started, but it's not at the moment giving any nectar. So while I can, and I said this last year, never don't feed because you think, it'll be all right. It'll be all right. The nectar's coming. If it doesn't materialize, you're up shit creek with a very, very broken paddle, because your bees will not have enough food to last them for that winter. And if you realise now, I've always made this comparison, that there's nothing worse than in the winter going, oh, they're getting hungry, I wish I could give them some food. To give them feed now is so easy. You just give it to them and they take it down, and that's the best option. When you get your hive virtually as heavy as you want, any other ivy, any other thing else after, that's the bonus. Just treat it as that. So get your feeding done now. Keep piling it on as long as they're taking it. They'll get to a point after 2 or 3 feeders full when you go, no, I think that's fine. You'll shuck the hive. You'll think, they're okay. Yeah, they'll be all right now. And then you'll see loads of ivy going in and you think, great, everything else is a bonus. Also, when I finish my feeding next week, I'm going around, everything this year is getting a pollen patty. I flip my feeders over like I did in the spring, and that creates a cavity. One thing I'd like to buy is actually a lot of crown boards, like very slim crown boards, which will give me the facility to feed all my bees with a crown board on top. Just put the pollen sub on top of the frames and put a shallow crown board on. But I don't have crown boards at the moment, and it's a massive expense to make up 200, 250 of those. Because next year I'm going to be expanding more. I'm going up by 50 hives, and I've got to, because I've got the nukes that I've made. I've just seen them yesterday. They're all taking the syrup well. As you know, I'm a little bit concerned there because they're a little bit behind. But let's be optimistic. They've got everything they need. They just, in 2 days, they've taken the whole feeder down, each one, and that's a really good sign. That means they're hungry. That means they're growing. That means they've got storage capacity, and it means they've got nurse bees and bees to take that syrup down, which is always a good indication. So that's it. There's still loads going on. I am so looking forward to wake up one morning and going, you know what? I'll take today off. But I can't do that just yet. It's still a load of stuff to do. So be in touch. Take care. Hope you're all well. And speak to you soon. Bye for now.